My name is Brittany Barrows. I'm 18 years old. Turning 18 was supposed to feel like freedom. The doorway into adulthood, the night that would prove I wasn't just the quiet shadow in my own family. My parents had promised me a celebration, music, laughter, a room filled with friends and relatives, all there for me. For once, I was meant to be seen. But nothing in my house ever truly belonged to me. Not even that night. It started with the storm. Flights in the Midwest were canceled, grounding my sister Sophia and her friends who had been headed to New York. She was supposed to be gone 3 days before my birthday. I had been counting down to her departure the way a prisoner counts the days until release. Instead, she was stuck at home pacing the hallway like a caged animal, her temper filling every corner of the house. My parents orbited her moods like obedient satellites. They whispered when she sulked, tiptoed when she napped, and rearranged entire days to avoid triggering her infamous tantrums. I watched it all with the same dull ache I'd felt my whole life, the ache of being second place in your own family. On the morning of my birthday, I woke to silence. No balloons, no cake being frosted in the kitchen, just the faint sound of Sophia complaining upstairs, her voice sharp as broken glass. By noon, I learned the truth. She had demanded that my party be canceled. If she couldn't fly to New York, then I couldn't celebrate. If she wasn't happy, no one could be. And my parents, my own parents, had agreed without hesitation. They didn't even tell me. They sent out messages to every guest claiming I was suddenly ill with a migraine and begged them not to text me so I could rest. The cruelty of it was almost elegant. At 7 o'clock that evening, I sat in a dress I'd chosen weeks before, waiting by the window for headlights that never came. The clock ticked louder with each passing minute. My phone stayed dark. And when I finally demanded to know why not a single person had shown up, my parents told me with blank faces the party was off. "Your sister is upset," my mother said, as though that explained everything. Something inside me cracked open. I screamed. I cursed. I hurled every bottled-up resentment into the air, the years of hand-me-downs, the forced compromises, the constant reminders that Sophia was delicate and I was strong. My father kept shushing me, terrified I'd wake her from her nap. That was all that mattered to them. Then Sophia came downstairs, all fake sorrow and venom. She said it was heartless of me to want a party while she was suffering. She even had the audacity to call me spoiled. Spoiled. Rage blurred my vision. I lunged at her, grabbing her hair, shaking her, cursing, until my throat burned. She clawed back, and for a moment we were two wild animals in the living room, locked in years of unspoken hatred. That's when the doorbell rang. We didn't hear it at first, not over the shouting. But when my father finally opened the door, my grandfather stood there. His silhouette filled the frame, his eyes sharp with suspicion. "Why is there screaming in this house?" he demanded, his voice like a gavel striking. Everyone went silent. For the first time all day, all week, all year, I felt a flicker of hope. Because if anyone could see through the lies, it was him. And deep down I knew this moment would change everything. The room froze the moment my grandfather stepped inside. His presence was like a storm front commanding impossible to ignore. Even Sophia, who never bowed to anyone, faltered under his gaze. "Explain," he said simply, his tone heavy enough to crush excuses. For once my parents didn't rush to smooth things over. They just stood there, silent eyes darting like guilty children. I realized in that silence that they feared him more than they ever feared hurting me. I took a shaky breath and spoke. All of it came pouring out: the canceled party, the fake illness excuse, the lies, the years of favoritism. I didn't dress it up or hold anything back. My voice trembled, but I forced the words out one by one like stones I'd carried for years. "Grandpa," I said, staring at the floor because I couldn't meet his eyes. "They've been treating me like I'm disposable my entire life. Tonight was supposed to be mine, but it never was. Nothing ever is." I expected him to comfort me, maybe pat my shoulder. Instead, his face hardened, jaw clenched tight as he turned on my parents. "You canceled her 18th birthday for this." He pointed at Sophia, whose lips curled in outrage. "Dad, you don't understand," my mother stammered. Sophia was devastated about her trip. Devastated. His voice rose thunderous. "You let one child's disappointment erase the other's milestone. Have you lost your sense of decency?" Sophia couldn't stay quiet. She tossed her hair back and snapped, "I was the one who said it. I didn't want anyone celebrating while I was in pain. If Brittany had any compassion, she'd understand. She's being selfish." Her words landed like knives. I flinched, but my grandfather didn't even look at me. His glare pinned her in place. "You are the very definition of entitlement," he said coldly. And shame on your parents for feeding it." The room went deathly still. My father opened his mouth to argue, but Grandpa cut him off with a wave of his hand. "I've been sending you money every month, covering your debts, supporting this household because you claimed you were struggling. And this is how you repay me, by crushing the only child in this house who still knows right from wrong." The air seemed to vanish. My parents looked like children caught stealing. For the first time, I realized the birthday party, my party, hadn't even been theirs to give. It had been his. "You've disgraced this family," he said, his voice low and dangerous now. "As of tonight, you will not see another cent from me." My mother gasped. My father paled. But Sophia, stupid, arrogant Sophia, actually tried to argue. "You can't just take sides. This is between us, not you." Grandpa turned his eyes on her, sharp enough to cut. "The world does not revolve around you, Sophia. And if you think it does, then perhaps it's time you find out what the real world feels like." Sophia's mouth opened, then closed. For once, she had no comeback. Grandpa turned to me, his expression softening in the slightest. "Pack your things, Brittany. You don't belong in this house anymore." My parents panicked at once. "Dad, please don't do this. We can fix it. She's exaggerating. You don't understand the whole story." But he ignored them, his eyes never leaving mine. For the first time in years, I felt seen. "Come with me," he said firmly. "Now." My parents begged, pleaded, even tried to block the stairs as I went up to pack. But I didn't hesitate. Each step I took felt like shedding another layer of chains. When I came back down with my bag slung over my shoulder, my grandfather was waiting by the door. My parents still argued, voices shrill and desperate, not for me, but for the money they were about to lose. I didn't look back as I walked past them. And as the door closed behind me, I realized this was the first birthday gift I had ever truly been given, a way out. Grandpa's house felt like another world. It wasn't enormous, not like some mansion out of a magazine, but every corner seemed to breathe respect. The walls smelled faintly of polished wood. The air carried no tension, no sharp whispers, no eggshells waiting to crack. When he opened the door for me, I half expected to feel like a guest. Instead, he simply said, "This is your home now," before setting my bag down himself. No ceremony, no lecture, just quiet certainty. That night, as I sat at his dining table, a warm plate of roast chicken in front of me, I felt a strange guilt creep in. My parents had never missed a chance to remind me how expensive I was, how much food and clothes cost. But here, Grandpa placed seconds on my plate without a word, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I'm sorry, Brittany," he said finally, his voice lower, stripped of its usual authority. "I should have done this years ago." The apology caught me off guard. For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. "Why didn't you?" I asked, my fork clinking against the plate. His eyes darkened, not with anger, but with something closer to regret. "Your grandmother needed me. She was slipping away. I told myself your parents could manage, that they'd love you enough." He shook his head slowly. "I see now I was wrong." Silence stretched between us. I wanted to believe him, but part of me couldn't forget all those nights crying into a pillow while he stayed away. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from Mom, another from Dad. Apologies written in neat little lines calling me strong and resilient. They said they favored Sophia because she was fragile, delicate, that they didn't even realize they'd been neglecting me. I read the words over and over, and something inside me curdled. They weren't apologizing for what they did, they were justifying it. They wanted me back for one reason only, Grandpa's money. The realization settled like ice in my stomach. So I decided to test them. I texted back one sentence, "I'll only consider coming home if Sophia moves out." It wasn't just revenge, it was balance. She was 23, working full-time, perfectly capable of standing on her own. If they truly cared about me, they would finally put me first. I hit send and dropped the phone on the table. "Trouble?" Grandpa asked, though he already knew. "They're pretending they care," I muttered. "But they don't. Not about me." He studied me for a long moment. "Be careful, Brittany. Sometimes vengeance feels like power, but it can turn to poison if you're not careful." His warning should have shaken me, but all I could think was, after 18 years of silence, why should I be the one to show mercy? That night I lay awake in my new room staring at the ceiling. The sheets were soft, the house quiet, and yet my chest felt tight, like something unfinished still waited in the shadows. Because deep down I knew Grandpa was holding something back. Something about his words, "I should have taken you away long ago," gnawed at me. And soon enough I would learn the truth. It came late one evening, almost a week after I'd moved in. Grandpa had just finished reading in his study when he called me over. His voice was softer than usual, almost hesitant. That alone unsettled me. My grandfather was many things, stern, commanding, unwavering, but never hesitant. Brittany, he began, setting his glasses on the desk. You deserve to know the truth about why your parents treated you the way they did. My chest tightened. Part of me didn't want to hear it. The other part burned with the need to finally understand. He drew in a breath. Your parents never planned for you. After Sophia, they wanted only one child. 5 years later, when your mother got pregnant again, they considered ending it. But your maternal grandparents found out. They insisted the child was a blessing. They pleaded with your parents to keep you. I felt the words slice into me. Unwanted. A mistake. My throat went dry, but he wasn't finished. Then he continued, his gaze. Heavy. Your grandparents, your mother's parents, died suddenly in a car accident. Your mother was 8 months pregnant with you. She had a breakdown. She began blaming you for the tragedy, calling you cursed. They planned to put you up for adoption after you were born. The room seemed to tilt. My palms went cold. I wanted to scream that he was lying, but his eyes held nothing but sorrow. They only kept you, he said, voice low, because your father's parents, your grandmother and I refused to let them give you away. We forced them to raise you. I stared at him, my mind reeling. My entire life I'd wondered why my parents looked at me with resentment I couldn't name. Now I knew. I had been a burden from the moment I existed. Tears blurred my vision. So all this time, they never wanted me. His silence was answer enough. I stumbled back my chair, scraping the floor. Every memory sharpened with cruel clarity. The hand-me-down clothes, the silenced birthdays, the constant comparisons to Sophia. It wasn't favoritism, it was rejection disguised as parenting. I should have taken you sooner, Grandpa murmured, almost to himself. I told myself I was protecting you by staying out of it. But I was wrong. I let you suffer. His apology felt like salt on a wound. Too late. Too late. I ran to my room, slammed the door, and pressed my face into the pillow to muffle my sobs. My phone buzzed beside me, a message from Sophia. We need to talk. Meet me after school tomorrow. Every part of me wanted to ignore her. But something in me, some twisted part that still craved answers, needed to hear what she had to say. I wiped my eyes, staring at the screen. My gut told me nothing good would come of this. And yet I typed back one word, fine. I didn't know it then, but that decision would drag me straight into another storm. The next afternoon, I spotted her waiting near the school gates. Sophia. Arms barrowed, sunglasses hiding her eyes, even though the sky was cloudy. She leaned against her car, like a predator waiting for prey. My stomach sank. I almost walked the other way. But then I saw my friend Marcus leaning on the fence nearby, a football player, broad-shouldered, steady as stone. He caught my glance and immediately walked over. You want me to come with you? He asked, reading the unease in my face. Yes, I admitted. My voice cracked, despite my best effort. Sophia's gaze flickered when she saw him. I don't want to talk with an audience, she snapped. Then maybe you shouldn't stalk me outside my school. I shot back, my anger lacing through the fear. Her lips curled. You've destroyed Mom and Dad. Do you even care? They can't sleep. They can't focus. They're falling apart because of you. I laughed bitterly. Funny. That's exactly how I've felt for 18 years, except nobody cared when it was me. Her eyes flashed, but I pressed on each word a blade. Remember when you demanded my birthday be canceled because you were miserable? Guess what, Sophia? If I can't be happy, then neither can you. It was her own logic thrown back in her face. Something inside her snapped. She lunged at me, nails outstretched. I stumbled back as her weight slammed into me, knocking me to the pavement. The world spun my backpack, cushioning me slightly, but the shock jolted through my bones. Brittany, Marcus shouted. Within seconds, I felt Sophia ripped off me. Marcus held her by the arm like she was weightless, his face unreadable. Back off, he said firmly, his tone making even Sophia hesitate. I scrambled to my feet, my palms scraped raw, my heart hammering. Rage pulsed hot in my chest. I walked straight up to her, my hand trembling not with fear, but with fury. And I slapped her. The sound cracked through the street. She froze, stunned. If you ever touch me again, I hissed, I'll go to the cops. And after everything you've already put Mom and Dad through, I doubt they'll appreciate the police knocking on the door. For once, Sophia had no snide remark. She just stared, breathing hard, her face red from the slap. I turned and walked away, Marcus falling into step beside me. My hands were still shaking, but for the first time in my life, I hadn't just endured, I'd fought back. When I told Grandpa that evening, he nearly called the police himself. I stopped him. She's not worth it, I said, forcing steadiness into my voice. But he leaned back in his chair, studying me carefully. Then, unexpectedly, he chuckled. You told your parents you'd only come home if she moved out, didn't you? I nodded. He smiled, sharp and almost proud. Clever girl. Let them choke on the choice they've made. His approval should have comforted me, but it unsettled me instead, because for the first time I wondered if I was becoming more like him, unyielding, ruthless, unforgiving. And deep down, I wasn't sure if that was strength or poison. 2 days after the fight, my phone buzzed again. Another message from my parents. For a moment, I thought it would be the same cycle, apologies laced with excuses, the same tired pleas. But this time was different. We've decided, the text read. Sophia will stay. You're the one tearing this family apart. If you won't come back unless she leaves, then you don't need to come back at all. I stared at the screen, numb. My chest should have ached, but instead I felt strangely hollow. Their words didn't cut me anymore. They confirmed what I had always known: they didn't want me. Not really. Another message followed, sharper. The truth is, the only reason we wanted you back was because we needed your grandfather's support. But now your mother's brother has stepped in to help the business. We don't need his money anymore. Or you. I read it twice, 3 times. My hands trembling, not with grief, but with something close to relief. They'd finally admitted. It said the quiet part out loud. Then came the dagger. You're a horrible daughter, violent, ungrateful. After everything we've done for you, feeding you, clothing, you raising you, you repay us with hatred. Just like Sophia said, you're heartless. I laughed, a sound that startled even me. Feeding me, clothing me. The bare minimum, they dressed up as sacrifice. They were proud of doing what any parent should do. That wasn't love, it was bookkeeping. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to unleash everything, to burn them with words, sharp enough to scar. But then a strange calm washed over me. No, they didn't deserve my anger. They didn't deserve anything at all. Before they could block me, I blocked them first. One tap, and their numbers vanished from my world. When I told Grandpa, his expression was unreadable. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he placed a hand on my shoulder, firm and steady. They've made their choice, he said. Now you make yours. Do not look back, Brittany. Looking back is how people get trapped. His words sank into me like iron. For the first time in my life, I believed them. That night, I allowed myself something I hadn't felt in years: joy. Marcus picked me up for prom. The gymnasium glowed with string lights, laughter spilling out into the night air. When he reached for my hand as the music swelled, I let him hold it. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I wasn't the afterthought. I was simply Brittany, 18, alive, free. But even as I danced beneath the lights, I couldn't shake the feeling that the storm wasn't over. Sophia wasn't someone who accepted defeat quietly. And if my parents had truly chosen her over me, then sooner or later she would make me pay for it. The final straw had broken. But broken things have sharp edges, and someone was going to bleed. News travels fast in families, even when no one speaks directly. Within weeks, whispers turned into full stories. My grandfather didn't keep his disappointment hidden. He told his siblings, his colleagues, even old family friends, why he'd cut my parents off. Soon the truth spread like wildfire: the favoritism, the birthday, the rejection. One by one, people began to distance themselves from my parents. On my father's side, cousins stopped visiting. Aunts and uncles stopped calling. Even family friends who used to adore Sophia suddenly had other plans. My parents' world, once propped up by appearances, began to collapse. I didn't watch from afar with sorrow. I watched with a strange, guilty satisfaction. It was justice, yes, but it didn't heal me. It only proved what I already knew: cruelty eventually eats its own. As for Sophia, her life wasn't untouched either. Without Grandpa's money cushioning everything, the household grew tense. She tried to keep up her princess act, posting photos of expensive brunches and shopping trips, but I started hearing rumors she'd finally moved out, sharing an apartment with a friend, because things at home had become unbearable. I pictured her sitting in some cramped flat, no doting parents to clean up her tantrums, no endless safety net. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. Meanwhile, my life was changing. College acceptance letters began arriving in thick envelopes, each one like a small victory against the years of neglect. Grandpa kept his promise: he would pay for it all. You'll never owe them anything again, he said, sliding the first tuition check a barrows the table. But the best change was inside me. For years, I had lived on scraps of love, convinced I had to earn every ounce of affection. Now, in the quiet mornings at Grandpa's house, I felt something I'd never known before: stability. Marcus was part of that, too. We spent weekends together, his easy laughter cutting through the heaviness that sometimes still clung to me. At prom, when he leaned in and kissed me under the fairy lights, it wasn't just romance, it was proof that I wasn't broken, that someone could choose me without conditions. And yet, there were nights when I still lay awake staring at the ceiling, haunted by questions. If Sophia had been raised differently, would she have turned out kinder? If my parents hadn't lost her grandparents in that accident, would I have been wanted? Justice was satisfying, but it wasn't the same as closure. Karma had taken its bite out of them, but I was still searching for the part of me they'd stolen. Summer came like a sigh of relief. High school was behind me. The heavy chains of my parents' house cut loose. For the first time, the horizon felt wide open. Grandpa and I settled into a rhythm. Quiet breakfast shared. Walks through his garden evenings where he'd tell me stories from his days as a lawyer. Sometimes I still caught myself bristling with old anger, remembering that he could have saved me sooner. But every time the bitterness rose, he looked at me with a kind of fierce regret, and I saw the truth he was trying in his way to make up for lost time. "You're stronger than I ever was at your age," he told me one evening, as we sat on the porch, the sun sinking gold behind the trees. "I failed you before. I won't fail you again." For once I believed him. College letters kept coming, and when I finally opened the acceptance from my dream school, I cried, not because I feared what came next, but because I had finally made it. I hadn't just survived them. I had built a life without them. Marcus celebrated with me, spinning me around in the driveway, until I was laughing so hard my ribs ached. He didn't see me as the girl with scars, the forgotten child. He saw me as Brittany, just Brittany, and that was enough. Back at my parents' house, things unraveled. My father's relatives cut contact, entirely disgusted with the way he'd treated his own daughter. My mother clung to her brother's support, but I knew even that lifeline wouldn't last forever. Sophia, from what I heard, had already cycled through 2 different roommates in her new apartment. Independence wasn't the fairy tale she'd imagined. Do I pity them sometimes? But pity isn't the same as forgiveness. I've learned something crucial. Not everyone who shares your blood is your family. Family is the people who stand by you, who fight for you, who remind you that you matter. By that measure, my family is small, but it's enough. On the night before I left for college, I stood in my new room at Grandpa's house, half-packed boxes stacked against the wall. I thought of that birthday night, the silence of my phone, the empty chairs at the table. Then I thought of where I was now, my own future stretched before me. A man downstairs who would never let me go hungry or unseen again. A boy who held my hand not because he had to, but because he wanted to. For the first time, I felt free. And maybe someday I'll forgive my parents. Maybe someday I'll see Sophia and not feel the urge to fight. But not today. Today, forgiveness isn't necessary. Today, survival is enough. My name is Brittany Barrows. I'm 18 years old, and for the first time in my life, I am exactly where I'm meant to be.